How much weight do I lift? I know this is a number one question that I get so very often, and I am finally going to answer it. So get ready, and here it is. If you're just starting weights, or if you want to confirm that you're using the right weight, this is your video. So where do you start? Here's the answer that I often give. It's not a popular one. But the very first thing that I will say to somebody when they ask me, where should I start, or how much weight are you lifting? It's none of your business. Now, it sounds a little snarky, and it is not intended to be, but it's really the truth. And if someone is sharing with you, here's where you should start, or here's what you should do, but they've never been with you, and they've never seen you pick up weights and watch your form, you want to be careful and cautious about that. Because although we can give you a ballpark, a range, we really can't tell you in any given day the weight that you need for the same exercise you did just a few days ago could be different, because everything changes the weights that you need. So I want you to keep that in mind. As we go in, I'm going to pick up weights and I'm going to show you certain exercises just a sample so that you understand why you need such a range. So here's my recommendation. First and foremost, you want 3 pair. If you're exercising at home or you're at the gym, of course you've got more choices. But if you're exercising at home, you want to have at least 3 pairs of dumbbells, what I call a light set, so your small, medium, and large. So your lighter set, your moderate or medium set, and then your larger or heaviest set. Now, I have 3 pairs of dumbbells and I have 1 kettlebell. There's nothing advantageous about a kettlebell necessarily, except it makes it easier to hold for certain exercises. So I want you to realize if you just had a heavier dumbbell, or someone else in your house has heavier dumbbells than you would use for certain exercises, you could hold that dumbbell in the same way that I'm going to show you some of the ways I use a kettlebell. So back to what affects what weight you need. All right, let's talk about that. If you didn't have a great night's sleep, the weight you lift today in your workout might not be as heavy as you were able to do last week. Now, sometimes that's not the weight. You can pick that weight up, but you might not have as many repetitions to fatigue. You might not have as much muscle endurance, which is what that is. You also want to factor in, okay, maybe yesterday you cleaned the entire house, you got all the Christmas decorations out, or you put them away. You did some big things, just moving a lot, moving extra, lifting, carrying. Maybe you were in the garden. Doing extra things is also going to affect how much weight you lift on a certain day. But here's something else that does. So when I program exercise design or exercise prescription, we call it, when I program workouts for a 12-week period of time, we don't just randomly say, oh, you need to work out. Go do a workout. Go find something on YouTube. I would never, ever say that, and I would never do that for myself. So I always have a plan. I need to know that what I did 2 days ago set me up for the workout I'm doing today. And I need to know that I'm getting myself ready for the workout that I'll have in a few days, or the recovery that I will need because this has been a big workout. So everything should have a method, a rhythm, progression, and or it's there for recovery. And that's a really important distinction to make as well. But within every workout, let's say in most workouts, we're going to do some form of a squat. We're not necessarily always going to do it first. And when we put it later in the workout, and we don't put a big muscle group like that too much later, but we do move it around a little bit. When we put it at the 3rd or the 4th exercise, you may not lift as much because you're not as fresh. Whatever we do first, generally we're going to lift a little heavier. So some days I will have clients emphasize their upper body a little bit more, and we start by, we're going to work the chest and the back muscles. We're going to work something that is upper body focused first before we do lower body. And And on other days of the week, we flip that so that we'll focus on lower body first. Sometimes we do that weeks at a time. So this week, this is a lower body emphasis work week, and we'll focus on squats, lunges, hip thrusts, those kinds of exercises a little bit more. So realize that when you come in fresh, you're probably going to lift your heavier weight. As you begin to lift, you will realize that there are days when you have a small range that you use for your arms. So it might be if you're fresh and there are fewer repetitions, you're going to pick up a heavier weight. But if it's higher in repetitions and or it's later in the workout, you'll probably think it would be smarter for me to pick up the lighter weight in this case. So just give you an idea of all of those variables that are going to impact you. And first of all, you never ever are doing it wrong as long as you're reaching muscular fatigue. So some days it's beneficial to do a higher rep range to reach muscle fatigue when that's your goal, or a lower repetition range where we're actually working on muscle strength and really the strength and the power that will help us age. We do want to do that, by the way. Fewer repetitions, 10 or fewer, can be really great, especially for major muscle groups that are really going to impact our metabolism. So let's start with the baby weights, all right? I do joke, put down the pink dumbbells and nobody gets hurt. However, notice, these are 3-pound dumbbells. You might like 2s or 3s as a small option, and here's a place where you're going to work them. Something like shoulder blades back, drop those shoulders down, slight bend of the knees, just unlocking them in a lateral raise. And the reason we do that is because that's a long lever. So this is a short lever, so elbow to here, versus the long lever. And the longer that lever is, the more stress and strain there is on the joints, the more core involved as well. So it's actually a bonus. But anytime you're lifting, this is a front raise. And if I were seated, I probably would do this seated, but I'm going to demonstrate here so you can see slight bend of my arms. I'm going to come up. This is a reverse fly or a reverse butterfly. It's for the rear deltoid. So I'm going to come up and I want to own that. And that means I can pause there. So notice I don't want to be doing this where I can't hold it up there. The weight's too heavy. If that's true, I'd rather have you come up, own it, and then slowly come back down. So you can lift with a little power, speed, and then slowly lower that. But that's a weight you want to have. So here's another thing to test. Go into your kitchen cupboard, your pantry, pick up soup cans. Now I know they're wider, harder to carry, but if they're 16 ounces, 16-ounce cans of beans or anything else you've got in there, do those and see, can I reach fatigue in 15 repetitions with those? Maybe you only need 1 pound, or maybe you need to use those for a while, and then go to 2 pounds. That might be enough. So that'll give you an idea. With smaller muscle groups, those are primarily the exercises: front raise, lateral raise, rear raise for all the deltoid muscles. And there may be some things that you want to do lying on your side. We call this, so not standing here, but lying on your side. If I were lying on this side doing this, I would be doing internal or external rotation. That's for the rotator cuff muscles inside. That can be really helpful. Again, small weight, you don't need a lot. Okay, so let's go to medium. So let's say if you're small, was 2, 3 pounds. No, I don't use that a lot, but I use it some. Your next kind of medium range is somewhere, for me, I have 5-pound weights at home. So you might have 5, you might have 8. Those are the most common designations that you'll find. Now, you can go to Amazon and you get a magnet that go right on the ends of these weights, and they can be a magnet that's 1 pound. So if you add 1 here, you've just added, so now it's 6 pounds, or you add 1 on each end and now it's 7. So that's a nice way for some of you that say, I just don't have the space, to have a whole set. So you don't have to. That's an easy way to use something that can just attach on the end of the weight, or a ring that goes around it that still allows you to put your hand there. So these, now if I'm feeling strong and I'm doing my lateral raises early, I may be able to do that, but I will tell you that I'm pretty strong, and yet still I don't spend a lot of time doing a lot of shoulder specific work, because shoulders are one of those joints that can wear out first. They do a lot of motions. We do a lot of motions with them, forward and backward and horizontal, abduction, adduction, extension, lots of things. And that means lots of things could go wrong. So we don't want to overuse them, because we use them in chest press. We use them in rows. We use them in lat pull down, or those pull-ups that you're going to be able to do. We don't want to overdo it. So often I'll err on the conservative side and be doing my shoulder work less, and I'll use those smaller weights. If I use these, a lot of times I'm using them for bicep curls, and or this is also a bicep curl that you may or may not be using, and I'll link you to a video with arms so that you can see the way I do biceps. I make sure I do the insertion here at the shoulder as well as the elbow. It's not just all about flexion. So that long lever, or a long lever for my triceps coming straight back. So it's here. So, and yes, of course, you're familiar with the kick back. And I don't want a lot heavier weight for this, because what happens is if I pick up a heavier weight, what happens is I compromise, and my elbow and my neck all get a little bit sore. So this is a great way. So for me, 5s, maybe for you 7s, you might be able to do something. I prefer, and I'm going to recommend to you, get full range of motion, and then use the strength within that. If you don't have full range of motion, potentially you're going to risk you're not strengthening fully throughout. And we want the tone and the strength to support the joints as well as in the belly. All right, now you need a larger set of dumbbells. So you need a pair that goes up. Now, let me tell you, I have 10 pounds. If I were at a gym, hotel gym or the one down the street, I can lift easily 20-pound dumbbells. So I'm not necessarily going to reach fatigue doing the same exercise at home with 10s, right? Well, what I will do is then sometimes cross them, and now I'm using 20 pounds and just on one side, so my core has to pay attention. So realize that if you have a limited amount of weights at home, you still can get creative. Now, I also can take that 10 and that 5, and I can put those together and hold on to them. And I have a relatively small hand. So if I can do it, you can do it. So I can change that, and these would be bent over rows, or they would be, I'm lying on my back doing a chest press, that kind of weight. So you're gonna want, I'm using 10, but again, I can get creative with it, 15 or 20, depending on your strength. So again, the best way to test is you really need a weight to try. So if you are trying to buy this online, but you've never actually lifted the weights, it's going to be a little bit more challenging for you. So whatever you have, start with that. Test yourself. See what you need. The last, but not least, that I have is a kettlebell. I want you to realize something. So I've been lifting weights consistently for 42 years. And I've done 8 iron distance triathlons. So pretty strong. I lift pretty heavy. And yet this is all I've had. I lived in the mountains for 7 years. It wasn't convenient to have to drive to town 30 minutes and drive back to just go to the gym. So a lot of times this was it. It's all I had. Nothing more, promise you. And I still gained lean muscle mass, kept my body fat low, and improved bone density during those 7 years. So If I can do it, you can do it. Realize that, what's the saying, Lance? It's not about the bike, it's what you do with it. Knowing how to program is really important. So the last but not least is a kettlebell. And I know you're going to ask, what is yours? So I'll tell you, but in this video only, this is 30 pounds. Now, I use this for bent over rows. And of course, I'm doing one arm. And I like doing one arm. We call that unilateral work. I will use this here, and I like to do squats in a plie. So wide, turned out, and why do I do that? A little bit more inner thigh, right? So I got ya. So I will do it here. Now, you can do a squat here, but you're gonna run into your legs. So if you're doing that, you're gonna hold it up here. And so it's here in a squat. You can hold it wherever you want to. If I hold it up here, it's also comfortable to hold, but I could hold a dumbbell up there too. Realize that. But that wakes up the core. So if I'm hanging here, the thing I have to watch is the droop that happens in the shoulder. Don't let that pull you down. You're in charge, all right? Let me remind you. And then if you bring it up, I just need to make sure I'm not letting this rest on me. I'm holding it here like you were holding a baby, but not against you, and then pushing up. So you need to kind of look at where that is. I will use that 30 pounds lying on my back and hold onto it with both arms as a chest press as well. I will use it for core work. We call this a farmer carry. So you're just walking down the road, turn it around, switch sides. And what's happening while I'm holding this? It's pulling me to this side. So this side of my core, these obliques, are working hard to maintain it. But what is this like? Groceries, shopping, one arm, you're carrying a child, you're opening the doors, you're holding on to a leash. We do things unilaterally, one-sided all the time. So I would prefer someone did this as opposed to held them in both arms, because we're really training you in a very functional way by having you do that. You can also hold that in one hand and do your squats here, down and up. But listen, I could do that with my dumbbell too. So don't go running out to get a kettlebell necessarily or think that you have to have one. So I hope that was helpful. So just a quick review: a lighter set, a moderate set, and a heavier set, maybe or maybe not a kettlebell. Next time I'm going to talk a little bit about weighted vests, how you start with one, how you avoid the risk of injury or errors, and whether you should or you shouldn't. If you have osteoporosis or osteopenia, how you onboard that so you get stronger and it doesn't have a negative effect on your posture. If you need help sequencing your exercise, I put some links down below. There's a great opportunity to join us either for a short 5-day challenge or to hop into the membership. And I'll see you on the flip side. Don't forget, subscribe. Let me know